Here we go, guys. Following from my most disliked video of all time, which was my early Premier League predictions. I clearly have not learned, because now I'm doing my official Premier League predictions. I do this every year, so it didn't matter. I still have to do these predictions. It's only 2 days before the season starts, and I'm really excited to predict this table. Very nervous based on the reaction. There have been some calls I've had to take as well. Relegation and top 6. Impossible to predict, really, for me. So I've done what I can, and hopefully that all of you can respect my opinion and my predictions. I love and respect every single team in this league. Even though I'm a Chelsea fan, I do respect every single team in there. So if I get your team to get relegated or finish below for what they finished, it's nothing personal, it's just my opinion. But if you guys enjoy what you see, please give the video a like. It just tremendously help. Let's aim for, I'd say, 20 likes for this video. I think it would be brilliantly appreciative. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. We're on 730 last time we checked. Could we try for 735, maybe even 740? You know, that'll be fantastically appreciated if you can get there. And please share this channel and this video to as many people as you can. And please comment down below your table predictions as well. Without any further ado, let's start inevitably wrongly predicting this Premier League table. So coming in at bottom place, in 20th place, I have predicted Norwich. Now, I really would like Norwich to stay up, and I think there's just been a recurring theme of teams yo-yoing between the Premier League and the Championship. We've seen it with West Brom and Fulham. I really want to try and stop this trend of Championship teams, you know, just going up and then getting straight back down. I want these teams to establish themselves, just to have a bit of variety in the Premier League. But I think one thing we've really seen, the really experienced teams in the Premier League, you know, are the best teams around for a reason, because consistently, year after year, they find a way to make sure they avoid the drop. And I think Norwich, despite going up, I do think they will go back down. I know they were champions, but they have lost BENHD. And I think Rashia is an alright replacement, but I don't think he'll hit the same levels. I like they got Josh Sargent in. I think he actually might be a good signing. Could be someone who can take a bit of pressure on Timo Pukki, you know, because I think when Pukki stepped up, you know, he had an incredible couple of games, didn't he? But then his form completely tailed off, didn't it? They lost Oliver Skip as well, which is a huge loss for them. He was a really important player in that midfield. They got Billy Gilmore in, which maybe could be a good like-for-like replacement, but even with that, the lack of defensive solidarity in that midfield, but also their defense, it does scare me a little bit, especially Premier League level, not necessarily Championship level, but Premier League level. I think they needed to do more investment in that area of the pitch more than anything. So unfortunately, Norwich are going down. In 19th place, unfortunately, is another newly promoted side, Watford. Now, I really want Watford to stay up as well. I am going to have a soft spot for the Championship teams, of course, with me, you know, doing a lot of my YouTube stuff on Championship content. But once again, despite having 37 players, which is absolutely incredible for squad depth, I just do not think they've, you know, got the strength in the right areas. I look at their forward options. Are they really going to use Isaac Success, Andre Gray as their source for goals, Troy Deeney, who's really not the youngest of players anymore? I like a couple of their transfers. I think Imran Louza is an interesting one from Nantes. I don't think he's going to be enough. They had got Emmanuel Dennis as well from Club Brugge as a centre forward. But I think that experience is not going to be enough. I think they needed more Premier League proven players for me in that striker position. I do think they're going to struggle with goals more than anything. Plus with, you know, Watford, it's never smooth sailing. They'll very likely depart with Xisco Munoz as well. You know, we don't know how he'll be as a Premier League manager, of course. So that uncertainty doesn't make me too confident either. Overall, I like what this club is about, but unfortunately, I just do not think they've got enough. Now, 18th place, I think was really difficult this year because there was, I think, 4 teams I had in mind who could finish 18th place, and the other 3 teams haven't really finished that far away from 18th. In the end, I've gone for Crystal Palace. Now, this could be a really big call that could really backfire. I'm already going to say this now because I do like the transfers they've made. I like they have Anderson from Fulham. I like the Championship acquisitions of Mark Gueye at the back. One, if not one of the best defenders in the Championship last season with that partnership with Ben Cabango. I think him potentially partnering up with Tompkins or maybe even Anderson, I think would be brilliant. And I do like the signing of Michael Elise. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when Elise and Eze work together? That would be incredible. But Eze was really important for Crystal Palace and he will be injured quite a fair bit in the season, especially at the start of the season. But the biggest reason is Patrick Vieira. Now, I love him as a player. I grew up watching Patrick Vieira as a rival fan. You know, he was really irritated, but he was so good. You always had the respect for Patrick Vieira. But as a manager, I don't really know what sort of qualifications he's going to have. You know, with his Palace side, I think it's, not really one for jobs. I think he can just simply keep them up. You know, Roy Hodgson, one thing he did, whilst he didn't have the brilliance of football, he kept teams up that, were not necessarily the strongest. Now, Crystal Palace do not have that reassurance. I think Patrick Vieira going in is a bit of a risk. And it can either be a risk worth taking, but it could be a risk that could cost them. And I'm opting for that the risk will cost them. But I might be wrong on this. If there's one prediction I might get wrong, especially if they make some transfers, I think it could be Palace, but I have to put someone there, and unfortunately it's going to be Crystal Palace. In 17th place, I've gone for Brentford. So I do have one of the newly promoted sides to survive, and it is Brentford, but very, very narrowly. And I've got to be honest, I was really debating whether I should put all three of the teams there, but I didn't really want to do that. That's boring. And it's actually not too often you do see all three of the newly promoted sides go down. It has happened, but it doesn't really happen often. And I think Brentford, for me, they're the better run club. We've seen it for years in the Championship for how good their ownership is and how they reinvest in their players as well, how well they've replaced their players in terms of big loss. For instance, we've seen Maupay leave, then they get Tony in, to fill into his shoes. And if anything, they've elevated since then. They've done that for so many years, Brentford, and they eventually got their reward for it. They've got a brand new stadium as well, which I think is brilliant for them. I'm really excited for the fans to go back as well. I think their fans are going to be very important, Brentford, to keep them in this league. They're going to have a nothing to lose attitude. They're going to be the underdogs for the whole season. Their first league appearances, I believe, in 74 years, which is absolutely crazy. I think overall, with Tony, being in the form of his life, he want to prove people wrong, but he can cut it into the Premier League. I think Josh Da Silva could have a big season, for the fact that he was completely disregarded at Arsenal. I think he could definitely have a big chance to really thrive in the Premier League here. I think the likes of Pontus Jansson is going to really thrive at this level as well. I think overall, I just got a bit more confidence in Thomas Frank, who could be quite adaptable as well. We've seen him change certain tactics and formations as well. I think Brentford might cut this. I think they will narrowly survive, but only just in 17th. 16th place, I've gone for Southampton. Now, Southampton, I was really heavily debating on putting them down, but a lot of people are predicting Southampton to go down, and I understand why. Only 4 wins in their last 15. Not great, isn't it? Relegation form, to say the least. And a lot of their wins, and in fact most of their wins, were against sides that were recently relegated in that season. So that even fills me with a little bit less confidence, but I do think Ralph Hasenhüttl is, a manager that not many people give a lot of credit for. I do think with the squad that has been depleted, especially losing Danny Ings, I think he'll still find a way around it, because we still got options. They've still got Shane Long, of course. They've got Nathan Redmond still, but they have got some strikers in. They have got Adam Armstrong, which we know as Championship viewers how good he is. 28 goals last season. Might spend a bit of time in this level, we've not really seen Che Adams really adapt to it, and he scored 20 plus goals in the Championship season, so could maybe be a similar player to that. But a player I really think who can really thrive at Southampton is Armando Broja. Now, I really was sad that Chelsea let him go like that, but he is a loan, so hopefully we will get him back. He scored the equaliser against Bournemouth in our pre-season game when we were 1-0 down to them. He was really, really important. One of our most exciting upcoming talents. Keep your eye on Broja. As a Chelsea fan, I know what he's capable of, and I think he can produce something special. I think almost actually him on his own might actually keep Southampton in this league, potentially with Armstrong chipping in with a couple of important goals. James Ward-Prowse and Vestergaard have been heavily linked. If any of them go, it definitely would be more likely that they will probably either finish lower than 16th. But the fact they're both still here, I think overall Southampton just got a bit enough just to limp over the line just barely to finish in 16th. The next team in 15th, I've gone for Brighton. Now, Brighton, in their last 3, I think even 4 seasons, they've only won 9 games. And even with those 9 wins, which is 27 points in total, they do amass enough points to survive. Now, a lot of people, what I've seen, have predicted Brighton to finish quite a fair bit higher than 15th. I think that they'll still stay there. There's not been one season that Brighton have not finished higher than 15th. And I think it will stay that way. I like Graham Potter as a manager. I like their squad. I think one thing about Brighton which really let them down, of course, we know about their XG. They had a fantastic amount of chances, but they just weren't taking them. I think if they reinvested more in the forward areas, I think it could really help. I mean, the signings, not really anything too note of attacking. I think the only one that could potentially be up there in attack is Karo Mitoma, which they managed to get from the Japanese league. And if they really got someone like an Adam Armstrong in to accompany someone like Neil Maupay, I think that could automatically improve. I do still back Maupay in the Premier League. I just think he needs more support. I think there was just too many times last season that he was too isolated. 15th, I think, for me, sounds about right. I might be a little bit wrong on that, considering a lot of people are predicting them to finish higher than 15th. But with the other teams around, I think Brighton will finish 15th for me. Now, 14th place is Burnley. Now, if you look at stats, you would suggest that Burnley should be pretty near the bottom of the league. Very poor in terms of goals, very poor in terms of possession as well. Chances created, the lot. It doesn't really go well for Burnley. But Sean Dyche is a miracle worker. Honestly, even they only made one notable signing, Nathan Collins from Stoke in centre-back, could be a good long-term option for Tarkowski, who is starting to get a little bit older. I think Burnley will still find a way to survive. They could even have a really, really bad start like they did from last year as well. But even when they picked up their opening win, I think it was against Sheffield United at Turf Moor. And since then, they were able to get some fantastic results. I remember a great result that they got against Spurs. They got a win against Liverpool and Anfield when they had their awful run at Anfield. And Burnley are just capable of those results. And to talk about what I was reiterating back with Norwich, these teams, I think, do edge the other newly promoted teams. You know, not necessarily just on the football, but the experience they have in getting into these tough situations and finding a way to survive. Burnley, it's within their core, it's within their blood to survive. I think it'll be a bit of a say-so season. I think they could have even finished a little bit lower than that, but I do think the teams below them might have a slightly worse season than them. In 13th place, I got for Newcastle now, because it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself. Once again, the football that they play is not the prettiest. The manager they've got is not the prettiest either, but it is safe, it is secure, and it guarantees one thing: Premier League survival, and that's exactly what Newcastle would need right now. I think definitely with the size of this club, they want to be pushing for more, but with Mike Ashley still in charge, you know, there's been a real long legal battle over their takeover. I think we'll see more developments as it goes on later in this season in particular, but whilst he's still there, I think Steve Bruce is a good option, actually. Whilst Newcastle did have a really scary period last year where they looked like they were going to get relegated at one stage, they really pulled it out of the bag. And actually, their form near the end of the season was actually really encouraging. One player was involved with that, Joe Willock. And what it really sounds encouraging to me, it looks like they are going to get Joe Willock back. He was honestly unbelievable when he joined Newcastle. He got the Player of the Month in the final season of the Premier League. I saw a stat recently with Joe Willock, and in fact, it probably was Don Robbie how I saw this stat. He's the only midfielder in the Premier League ever to score in 7 consecutive matches, which I think is brilliant for Joe Willock in the young age that he is. To play alongside with Alan St. Maximin as well, I think will be brilliant as well. Overall, I do think they have enough of a good core at the back, midfield, goalkeeper. I think they might have Freddie Woodburn in goal, actually, which I am interested to see how he gets on as well. And I think with their attack as well, overall, I think it's pretty safe and secure. I think Newcastle will finish 13th. In 12th place, I've got Wolves. Now, I think a lot of people are predicting Wolves to finish in that area of the table. If anything, I don't think they'll finish any higher. I probably could push them a little bit lower, honestly. I don't know. I'm going to keep them in mid-table for now. They've got a new manager in Bruno Lage. I don't know if I pronounce it like if it's Lage or Lager. I don't know how you pronounce it, but former Benfica manager. and another Portuguese manager. So the owners are still trying to adopt this Portuguese identity. They have lost a load of players, including Rui Patricio Vedi's joined Jose Mourinho at Roma. The return of Raul Jimenez, I think, will be really big for the club. I think when he did have that long-term injury, it really affected the form as well. Some transfers do excite me. I'm really intrigued to see how the €11 million signing Raul Ait-Nouri, the left back from Angers, will get on. I think that's an interesting signing. Also, the loan transfer of Francisco Trincao from Barcelona as well. I think those two players are definitely two you might want to keep your eye on. Overall, I think they have got the fundamentals to finish top, but I think it's a real shame. When they got promoted in the 17-18 season, they looked like they were going to explode in the Premier League and pretty much be where Leicester are right now and push for top 6. But unfortunately, it's like the owners have kind of accepted the standards where they've been a lot more complacent and just staying in that mid-table position, which I think is a real shame. To have this big surge in momentum, but then just allow your standards to drop, I think it's a bit of a shame for me. 11th place for me is West Ham, so a bit of a drop from their 6th place finish from last year. I'm predicting them to finish in 11th. Big reason for that is the Europa League. I think they are going to really struggle with that. Also, squad depth plays a big factor in it as well. They have got one of the thinnest squads in the league. I do like their starting 11. I think it's very, very strong. You know, you've got the two Czechs of Souček and Kufal, who I think had a brilliant Euros, and I think they'll continue to do the same with West Ham. I like their forward options as well. Still got Declan Rice. They've had to really dismiss a load of links for him going into the summer. I do worry about the goals though. They have lost Jesse Lingard, and when he came in, I think he was a really important factor to really elevate West Ham with their goals. And Mikel Antonio can still do it, but he's very, very prone to injury. Their goalkeepers is interesting. They could switch with Fabianski and potentially one of their new signings, Areola, as well. I think they're two very competent goalkeepers. So overall, I think the big reason is that because of how thin their squad is, one injury could really set them back. Playing in Europa League is going to really fatigue West Ham, especially to reiterate with that squad depth, it's going to make it even 10 times as difficult as well. And I think overall what's been going on with the ownership as well, just the lack of investment. That is why I've got West Ham in 11th. I really hope they prove me wrong though. They were a real joy to watch last year. 10th place, I've gone for Everton. This might be one that I could be risking a bit because the squad on paper for me, I think definitely screams a squad that is better than 10th place. Even Rafael Benitez, if you look at his trophy record, it screams a manager that, you know, shouldn't get 10th in the Premier League. But overall, I just think this change, I think it's going to really take a bit of time for Everton for them to settle overall. But for me, a lot of their injuries last year came in defence. You know, we saw Lucas Digne out for a really long part of the season, just to name one example. And one area they really invested was actually their forward options. They got Damari Gray in, who was formerly a Leicester player, got them from Bayer Leverkusen, but also Andros Townsend, which I think is an alright signing actually. You know, not the youngest of players, but full of Premier League experience, which is great. But my really big worry with Everton really is just, I think they definitely needed more depth in that back line. There was some conflicts between James Rodriguez and Benitez. I still don't know what's going to go on with that. The whole Sigurdsson situation, I think, could definitely put some players off as well. You know, if the rumours are true, then I don't think Sigurdsson's going to play for Everton again. And I think with Benitez, I think he is a bit more of a conservative manager than what Carlo Ancelotti is going to be when he was at Everton as well. I think it's going to be another example when we see a team's standards drop slightly. But I think transitioning as well, I think would definitely give Everton just, you know, a little bit of time for them to try and adapt to this. So for me, that is why I think they'll finish in 10th. But I might be wrong on that because their forward options of Carlson, Calvert-Lewin, they'll be very, very crucial to that. But if one of them gets injured, you know, I think my 10th place would almost be sealed. 9th place in the table is Leeds United, according to my prediction. So I'm backing Leeds to have a really good season again. No second season syndrome for them. Big reason why, I think Marcelo Bielsa just simply won't allow it. Marcelo Bielsa is a good enough and most importantly an experienced enough manager to not have that sort of mentality. I like the signing of Junior Firpo from Barcelona as well. 15 million euros they paid for him. They got Jack Harrison permanently now, so now they don't have to worry about trying to get him from Manchester City as well. I think that Leeds squad overall was very undervalued, and you know, me included, I predicted them to finish 15th last year and they completely proved me wrong. So I'm definitely going to give them a position that I think they deserve. I don't think top 6, to be honest. I don't think they're quite there yet. But give it a couple of seasons. Marcelo Bielsa, if he sticks around as well and he gets more of his players in, maybe give it a couple of years. They're a really exciting team that I really hope they can achieve for what I think Wolves didn't do and really push the top 6 all the way. In 8th place, I've gone for Aston Villa. Now, I'm kind of putting Aston Villa as the best of the rest, because I think the top 7 is pretty much everyone else's top 7 as well. Now, Villa, for the fact they lost Jack Grealish, you know, that's the big elephant in the room, isn't it? You know, they lost it for 100 million to Manchester City. But what Villa have done very cleverly, they've invested that 100 million already. And in fact, just under that price tag to get 3 players in, which I think will help their squad. Danny Ings as a striker, I think he will definitely give Ollie Watkins a lot of really good competition. They got Emiliano Buendia from Norwich. They managed to sort of Arsenal to get Buendia in, which I think is brilliant. One of the first signings in the window as well, which I think the speed of getting these transfers in was really, really important as well. But one I'm really excited about is Leon Bailey. He was linked with Liverpool quite a few years ago. In fact, Chelsea were linked with him as well at one stage. And now he's joined Aston Villa after a couple of really good seasons under Bayer Leverkusen. I think he can be someone who could be a superstar. I really do say that. I've really been excited for what I've seen for Leon Bailey. And just that front three of Watkins, Bailey and Buendia. That front three could even rival some top 7 clubs front three, to be honest with you. Their defense is alright. It tends to be really solid. They have got a Copa America winning goalkeeper now, Martinez, who'll just be continuing to get better as well. I really like a lot of what I'm seeing with Villa. I just think a couple of injuries could definitely slow the pace down a bit. If they reinvested a bit more in that midfield, I think they can definitely really potentially be a really strong contender to be top 7, but I don't think they're quite going to have enough, but it's really, really close. So now let's go to the top 7. So these are going to be the teams that's going to achieve a place in Europe. So 7th place, for me, it's Spurs. So that'll be 2 consecutive seasons of 7th place finishes for Spurs, which I don't think they're going to like, really. But I don't think they could really blame me, to be honest. With the situation that they find themselves, they have lost a handful of players, including the likes of Toby Alderweireld, a very experienced player there. Gareth Bale they've lost as well. It looks like he has returned to Real Madrid. I've not really heard anything that he's going to go back to Spurs, who I think, you know, say what you want about Gareth Bale. When he was called upon, he was a very important player in that Spurs squad. And also, the big elephant in the room is Harry Kane. Is he going to stay? If he stays, definitely at least top 7 for me, at least. But even under Nuno Espirito Santo as a manager, I do think it's a little bit uninspiring for someone like Spurs, especially when they got someone like Jose Mourinho in, a serial trophy winner. And unfortunately, just once again, just changing strategies. And I think this sort of erratic decision-making from Daniel Levy, I think is really holding this club back, to be honest with you. They had a great identity under Mauricio Pochettino. One frustrating run of form gets him sacked, and it's just, how can you change identity that quickly? It's going to get to players, and I can understand Kane's frustration if he does want to leave Spurs, unfortunately for him. I do not like the sign of Bryan Gil as a left winger. I think he'll be a good signing. Of course, I did lose Lamela in the process. I think played in Europa Conference as well, like hindered their form as well. I think they will finish 7th, unfortunately for them. Now, 6th and 5th, I've kept changing. Eventually, I've made up my decision. 6th place for me is Leicester. Now, I really wanted to predict Leicester to finish even higher than this, because I really regrettably have really undervalued Leicester. This season, you know, even that they won the Community Shield already, so congratulations to Leicester, and I'm really happy that they beat Manchester City to that. I just think for them playing Europa League with the league, I think is definitely going to hinder them. You know, they did at one stage of the season look like that they can cope with that, but just a couple of injuries did really alter their form. I like the 2 signings of Patson Daka from Salzburg. I think that's a good signing. But even more impressive for me, Bukayo Suma, someone who has just won Liga with AC Lille in that defensive mid position, which I think is an area that they already, I actually felt, were really good when they have the likes of BENHD or Chinameni in that position. But the fact they've now got Suma there, they're just increasing the real good possibility of having this robustness about them, which was really a good identity of Leicester. It's very difficult to win the midfield battle against them. They've got one of the best goalkeepers in the league in Kasper Schmeichel. Defence, yeah, it could be a bit touch and go. I know they've got 3 defenders injured at the start of the season, James Justin, Timothy Castagna being 2 of those, which I think is a big blow. And even if they rely on Vardy, he's still 1 year older. Ian Nacho, I think, will be very important this year. So hopefully for him, he can definitely kick on from this season. I just think the whole Europa League and the defensive players that they're going to have injured for quite a fair bit of the season, that is the reason why I've not quite gotten to finishing 5th, but it was very, very tight. And I really hope Leicester prove me wrong, because they are a wonderful club. It's a club that everyone loves, to be honest with you. In 5th place is Arsenal. Now, you may be thinking, why on earth am I predicting Arsenal to finish as high as this? I could really be overestimating Arsenal. I'm going to say that here. I'm still not too convinced with Arteta, to be honest with you. But the big reason why out there is no European football. And I think it's something that people have forgotten. But yeah, they've not got European football. I'm going to name 2 scenarios when having no European football has improved the team's form. Liverpool, 2013-14, no European football. The previous couple of seasons finishing around mid-table. Eventually under Brendan Rodgers, when they didn't have European football, they finished 2nd place, just below Manchester City, you know, to win the title. They were so close to winning it. It was that famous Stevie G slip in that year. And Chelsea, when they didn't get European football in the 15-16 season, you know, when they finished 10th in that season, the season after that, Conte comes in and we win the title. It does improve a team's form when you do have less games to schedule. But even with that, I'm still not too convinced on their squad. The signings of Ben White and Tavares, I think, could be good for them. You think if anything's going to improve their defence, maybe they could be the answer for it. But even with that, you're going to still be relying on Aubameyang and Lacazette for goals. But they've, for me, not really cut it, to be honest. So I think Arsenal finishing 5th might be a little bit overconfident on my part. But the big reason of them having not European football, I think, will definitely project them a little bit. But Arsenal fans, when you finish 5th without European football, it's something not to be excited about. I genuinely think a whole change of ownership, but also getting rid more of that deadwood. Got rid of part of deadwood, but there's still a lot of deadwood there. Get rid of all of that, reinvest, and I think you'll definitely be a very serious side again. So now that being the table vow inevitably getting into the most trouble, the top 4. Now I think everyone has got the same top 4 teams this year. And can I just say, top 4 is not a bad place to finish. The problem is, all 4 of these teams could win the title for very different reasons. And because of the high expectations, that's why people get mad if I don't predict this team to win instead top 4. For me, 4th place goes to Liverpool. Really, really tough decision that, because I think Liverpool do have the potential. Of course, they've got the squad to win the Premier League. Pretty much that same squad that they used to win the Premier League, you know, minus Gini Wijnaldum and his move to PSG. I think because of their strikers and their forward players, you know, approaching 30 as well, they will be starting to be a bit more fatigued. But I think a big reason is going to be their defence. Now, their defence was their biggest problem last year because of the injuries they had. It was ridiculous, their injury schedule. Alexander-Arnold was out, Van Dijk out for the full season, Joe Gomez was out for a good significant chunk of it. They had to get a ridiculous number of defensive signings to try and fill in a recognisable back 4. I felt really bad for them in that sense, and to still finish 3rd I think it was quite remarkable, to be honest with you. But even with those players coming back, I think they will be rusty, which I do think will not help Liverpool's form. I like the fact they got Konate in for 40 million, which I think could be alright for that defensive option. I think it's good cover for someone like Gomez or Van Dijk who will still be trying to recover. But also just the lack of investment, you know, in the midfield. I feel like they need more mobility in that midfield. I do think for me it can be a bit complacent and static, their midfield, which I think is a big problem. So if they invested more in that midfield and found someone to fill in for someone like Gini Wijnaldum, I think they could definitely improve on 4th. But for me, I think they will be 4th this year. And Liverpool fans, please don't kill me in the comments. I like what your club's all about. In 3rd place, I have gone for Manchester United. Now, if it goes to the transfer window, they will be 1st for me, because they really have, to be fair, really stepped up not only just the standard of players as well, but for just how good the deals have been as well. You know, to get Sancho for the money that, you know, that he was offered a couple of years ago, to get him, you know, in the price that he was now. Brilliant signing. They haven't confirmed Varane. I think his visa is the reason why they've not been able to get him as quick, you know, as probably Manchester United wanted. But that's pretty much confirmed, which I think is an exceptional signing, to be honest with you. But the big reason, really, I've not got them to finish second is just they've not made enough signings in the midfield. I really think if they're going to use McFred again, I don't think it's going to really help them. Matic could be used more, and I still think Matic is a little bit past it. If they made a bigger intent to get a really good midfield in, let's say they got a Camavinga in, I think they could get second. I really do think so. Of course, they did finish second last year. Their away form was what was really good. They were unbeaten away from home last season, so it's really tough to play against Manchester United. But there's also the uncertainty of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. We've kind of warmed to him. You know, he's probably just a really good fit for Manchester United. But is he a good enough manager to lead a Manchester United side for a title challenge? For me, I don't see it personally. And it's not an attack on Solskjaer, really lovely guy and human being. I just don't see him as a manager that's going to have the tactical nous to really elevate this Manchester United side with some consistency and to really get him to push the title. But that's my opinion. So, we've now into the top two. Man City and Chelsea left. Of course, me being a Chelsea fan. Oh my gosh. I mean, I've got two different outcomes in my mind. I really do. And a lot of people are really excited about Chelsea this year. And I can understand why. We're going to have a full season under Tuchel now. When he came in, we had one of, if not probably, one of the best defences in all of Europe, really. And it showed with our Champions League performances. What was our biggest problem was consistency. And for me, I think that big factor is the reason why I've got Chelsea second and Manchester City first. It really breaks me as a Chelsea fan to predict that, but I've gone for my head rather than my heart. My heart says Chelsea can win, but I think we'll still finish second. Even that we pretty much confirmed we've got Romelu Lukaku, there's still that really big fear factor that he will be one of our ever-growing list of strikers that just can't cut it. You know, you've got Werner, Shevchenko, Fernando Torres, Alvaro Morata still on that list, and maybe Lukaku returning to Chelsea could be another member for that. But he has cut it, you know, even if he may not have had a good season with Man United, he's a guaranteed 20-goal a season striker. If we can somehow find a way not for him to score 20 goals, then there's something remarkably wrong with our coaching system in the striking area. But defence, I don't have a problem with. Some people have questioned, you know, the likes of Thiago Silva being a little bit older, but Rudiger was really good in that back three system. I think we will go five at the back. Whilst teams may expect that and they may be more prepared for that, I think if Tuchel really drills in this mentality that he really wants Chelsea to improve their consistency, I think it will help them. But just to go on with the consistency problem from last year, you know, we see an unbelievable FA Cup semi-final performance against Man City, but then we follow up with a really embarrassing loss to Leicester in the FA Cup final. But then we have a really good Champions League semi-final performance against Real Madrid. Then we follow that by losing in the final day of the season against Aston Villa. And it's that example of that poor inconsistency, which is why I really do not think Chelsea have got it. They're young players, one of the youngest squads in the league. Unbelievable potential, but we could see Havertz and Lukaku working together. That four in itself really excites me. Ziyech's been impressive in pre-season. Werner, I think, will continue to get assists, which he has done really well as well. And I think we will just miss out. Which means I've predicted Manchester City to win. I mean, they've got the biggest squad in the league. They've got Grealish in their squad as well. One thing that could definitely be Manchester City's kryptonite could be a load of scheduling, you know, if they go for a load of competitions and try and go for a quadruple, which at a stage last year, it did look like that they could do that. But I think just to have that relentlessness that Pep has really got into the squad, he's a serial winning manager, and that rubs off in the players as well in their performances. They cannot deliver below a 10 out of 10 performance. It's very intimidating. It's very rare when you've got a team that's so intimidating to play up against. Even when in Chelsea, you know, with us having a pretty good record against Man City, it's always intimidating to play against them. They have well organised, and going forward, they're deadly. I think just having Jesus, you know, as a striker could potentially be something that they might need to improve on. You know, might need to get a second striker in. You know, I'm sure there's others available. That is honestly probably only one thing they need to do for this squad to be close to perfection. I mean, I am going to be boring and predict Manchester City win, but that's because I want to get a load of predictions right, you know. I got 3 right last year, and I want to try and get 5, you know. So let's see if these predictions are going to be any better. So on the left-hand side of the screen is my Premier League table. Also, make sure you comment your table in the comments down below as well. I'll definitely feature your comments when I look back in this next year. But as always, it's just my opinion. I don't hate a single club either, alright? So I'm not spreading hate, it's just my opinion. But that'll wrap it up for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please give the video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please subscribe if you're new. It does really help. And please share this video and this channel to as many people as you can. All of that really helps. But that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care.